Welcome back to Fast Gadgets. We're going to talk about Windows 10 today with build 15002. Everybody's saying this is going to be a really big deal, and not only that, it's going to be a really big update. Now, currently this is only available in the developers ring, so you are not going to see this update right now. This is actually going to come out sometime in April, and they're saying that essentially the entire OS is going to be replaced. So this concept of rolling updates, kind of like what Apple has been doing with Mac OS X or OS X or Mac OS, depending on what you want to call it, where we basically have the same operating system, but it gets regular updates. So the idea is there isn't going to be a Mac 11 or 12 or whatever. We have revisions of the core operating system. So what's going on in the new operating system, 15002? Well, first of all, you will now have the ability to take a series of tiles and drop them into a start menu folder, much like what users of Windows Smartphone have been able to do. So this is going to be something new for Windows, but I can see where this would be a very useful tool. Instead of just having groups of tiles, you could actually have a folder with several tiles in it that you want. One of the big features they're talking about is the app throttling feature, which kind of goes hand in hand with the gamer mode. So basically, any applications that are running or processes or services that are not essential can be throttled, but which basically will choke those background apps and make them use very little processor time and very little memory. Now, there could be a downside to that, depending on which processes you throttle. Hopefully, the build will be intelligent enough to know which services or programs should not be throttled and will not allow a user to do that without administrator access. But with that throttling mode, it should eke out a little bit more processing and memory for older systems. That's the hope anyway. So this was a big thing in iOS and iPhones, and I guess it's a cool feature. Basically, you're going to be able to turn on blue light controls, and what'll happen is as the day gives way to evening, your colors on your screen will redshift, so they'll go more towards the red spectrum of light. And I think this is a pretty good idea. Now, there are some studies that suggest that there are links to obesity and cancer, and the whole point is, as the night goes on, you will naturally feel ready to sleep, where if the light is more towards the blue, and when I say light coming from your screen, you're less likely to be able to, well, the theory is anyway, you're less likely to feel sleepy, so it tends to keep you up at night. Me, on the other hand, I have no problem sleeping, so it doesn't matter if it's blue or red to me. It might even be worse for me. Microsoft Edge is going to get some serious updates. It really doesn't have much of a market share. One thing I will say about Microsoft Edge is that it is very fast on lean or older PCs compared to Firefox or Chrome. So I have a tablet which I did a review of. It's a Dell tablet. It has 2 gigabytes of RAM, a 4-core processor. I can't remember which one, but it's just a basic tablet, but it has a full implementation of Windows 10 on it, and really the Microsoft Edge browser is the best bet. You will be able to set aside Edge tabs. Now, this is a pretty neat feature. So if you close a tab and you want to open it back up later, you can. So you can restore tabs that you had open previously. Other browsers have had this feature, but this is new. So basically you can reduce the stress of open tabs, and theoretically anyway, your computer should run faster. And if you do need the tab back, you can call it back. So Cortana has some recurring monthly reminders among other updates that it gets. If you need to have a reminder for your anniversary or some other important calendar event, it will do that for you now. You would think that would have already been in there. I mean, that seems like a very basic thing, but of course Cortana isn't necessarily your calendar, so now there's a tie-in there. And the Windows key and C will activate Cortana, which is much quicker. So if you are using Windows Professional, Enterprise, or Education, you have a new feature that will let you pause updates for up to 35 days if you need to do that. But eventually you're going to have to accept the updates, but it's some kind of a compromise. I was using a Windows 10 virtual machine while I was in Linux, and I shut down my laptop when I opened it back up. It mandatorily began to do updates, and I was stuck letting the virtual machine run for about 2 hours. It was a heavy round of updates. So this would be a nice feature that would come in very handy. If you've ever had to do a refresh of Windows, you had a problem installing a driver, maybe you had a hiccup and the system won't boot, you can do a refresh installation of Windows, and that will now be built into Windows Defender. Not a huge thing, but it's a little bit less digging to actually find the option in case you need to do that. Now, build 15002 has a unified device settings menu. So if you recall right now in Windows, in the Metro UI, you do have to go hunting and pecking for different devices. Well, now all those physical device settings are going to be on one screen, so it's going to be a little bit easier for us to find those particular settings and make changes to our hardware. There will be a more comprehensive list of touchpad settings and gestures. I think here Microsoft's trying to compete with the Mac OS and with Apple because they have a expansive set of gestures on their expanded touchpad, and here Microsoft's just trying to show that they're up on the game as well, and you don't have to rely on just the touchscreen to do what you're doing. If you like personalizing your system, Windows 10 will track those changes. Before, if you made a change, you couldn't really go back to what you had before, and now you will be able to go back to a previous choice of settings. It's not like it's a huge update, but certainly it's something that users who like to tweak their interface and what Windows 10 looks like will like a lot. If you're like me, in the Metro UI, I found it really irritating that you would actually have to fall back to what essentially is the display settings from Windows XP days, and they really haven't changed much. Well, I'm not sure that we should really get all excited about this, but now when you go into the settings and you alter the display settings, it'll actually be right inside the Windows 10 UI. One of the things I do really like about Windows 10 is it's absolutely brilliant at scaling on higher resolution interfaces. And so if you've got a 4K display, scaling is really nice, but it did have a bit of a problem with icon scaling. And now with Windows 10 build 15002, the icon scaling is supposed to be greatly improved and is supporting that high DPI display that you may be using. Once we get to the new build, the old blue screen of death may be replaced depending on what the problem is with a green screen of death. It'll be interesting to see who has the first green screen of death and is able to get it up on YouTube. So in a nutshell, that's the updates that we can look forward to. If you're a Windows 10 user, it sounds like Microsoft's headed in the right direction. And one last update of importance is a more granular approach to your privacy. So supposedly there's going to be a lot more privacy settings that you can tweak. I have heard, however, it's going to be a web-based interface. So basically, it sounds like your actual system is running a local web server, and that may be how those statistics are provided to Microsoft. Kind of spooky to think of that, but supposedly you will be able to go into the web console settings and turn off certain features. So it remains to be seen. That might just be pre-development, and it may change and get built right into the Windows 10 UI. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time on Fast Gadgets.